Pink Poodle Crafts, join the Poodle Pack. It's time to get creative and make you laugh. Make your own art today. Pink Poodle Crafts is the way.
What a good boy. Hello. How's my poodles out there? I haven't done a video in a while, have I? But today we're going to do a video. For once. Isn't that fun? I've got a lot of watercolor paints. And I've got some super cheapy ones that are like $5. And then I've got some mid-range ones that are like, you know, $30 for a large array of colors. And then I've got these nicer ones that I don't even know what brand they are, but I got them at the Creative Reuse. Somebody had dropped off their old palette and they had already filled their palette, or at least partially, with really nice watercolor paints. I know these are really nice watercolor paints. Expensive, I should say. Same with this one. So, and also I got these tubes, which are also expensive watercolor paints. And I only have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 colors. But it's Winsor & Newton Professional Watercolor. I looked these up and they're like $10, $12 a tube. So that to me is expensive. So what I want to do is kind of an experiment. And I also just want to do some watercolor painting. I found this tutorial on YouTube. Where else? I mean, that's where we find all our tutorials. And this lady was doing really pretty fall leaves. And she was watercoloring them using what's called the wet on wet technique. That's where you put water down in an area. And you've seen me do this before with my little watercolor flowers and things like that. But you put like some water down and then you take a wet brush and dip it into some paint, and then you tap, you put it into the wet paint, water that's on your paper. So I want to do that with maple leaves because this woman, that's what she was doing, and I love the way it was coming out. And I want to do 3 of them because I want to do one leaf that is with the cheap paints. I want to do another one with the mid-grade paints and another one with the more expensive paints. And I thought it would be cool to compare the 3. Because honestly, I don't feel that there'll be that much of a difference. And I think that what I, want to see really is what, the value that you get for your paints. And especially, I mean, if I could see, look, if you're a professional watercolor painter, or, somebody who's definitely not like me who just plays around with watercolors. I don't know a lot of techniques. I don't know a lot of, all the fancy stuff. I can't draw. I don't do that kind of art. I don't do fine art is, what I'm saying. I do like, just abstract kind of art and just kind of backgrounds and fun stuff and arts and crafts, collage, backgrounds, that type of stuff, mixed media. I don't do watercolor. I don't do like professional style acrylic painting and all that. I don't even try because it's out of my wheelhouse, and that's okay. I don't really have a desire to do it. So, but I do like playing with watercolor. I definitely like playing with watercolor. If I was going to pick anything, I think watercolors, if I was going to like try to get lessons in any kind of painting, I think watercolor would be my favorite. I like oil color too, but I haven't played with oil colors in a really long time. So anyway, I digress. I saw this woman. I will put the link to her video below because I can't off the top of my head remember the name of it. And I'm not going to go on my computer right now to search for it while I'm recording. So it'll be in the description, the link to her video, which might be more helpful. I'm not sure. But what she did basically was she kind of drew a maple leaf, but she did it in sections. Because if you try to draw a maple leaf and then put water in the whole thing and try to keep it wet while you're painting, it's never going to stay wet. You're going to have to keep adding water and keep adding water to the different areas. So the best thing to do is, I like the way she did it, because I was actually thinking of doing a maple leaf, and then I decided to do a little looking up of some videos on YouTube, because I thought, well, how does everybody else do it? Because I already knew right away that if I even drew a maple leaf, you know, and you want it to be, you know, a little bit big, you don't want it to be super tiny, you know, and I thought, well, how is it, I know from doing wet on wet stuff, like, how am I going to keep the water from, by the time I get from one area to the next, completely, you know, the water completely evaporating or soaking into the paper. And her technique was to kind of make it in sections. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to try her technique. I went online and did a search for maple leaf silhouettes, and I found some, and I printed them out. I actually have several different sizes, and because I took one and I opened a Word document, put it in, and then sized to different sizes so that I can decide on which one I want to use, because like I thought I maybe wouldn't know, and I think this size is good, especially for right now. And I'm going to trace it because, again, I can't draw. So I thought if I try to draw it, I'll be here forever trying to erase. There's no point. You know, I'm not trying to show off my drawing skills, which I don't have. I'm trying I want to play with painting, you know, watercolor. Okay, and I'm not going to work. How did I do that? And I'm not going to see it. It's still heavy-handed. Look, look how dark that is, and I barely touched it. I don't know what's on my hands or what's going on. Maybe this is doing it, but like something is leaving marks on my paper. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about the stem actually, and I'm actually going to kind of close that in a little bit, because I don't want to do the stem, you know, the way that one was drawn on there. What I'm going to do is, and how she kind of did it was, when she drew hers, she kind of drew it in separate parts. I drew the whole thing, and now I'm going to do the separate parts, if that makes sense, kind of. Because this leaf is slightly different than the one she did. So I'm going to section it off, and basically I'm going to very lightly do like a stem. That'll end up being like, you know, a stem that goes through it with, you know, the veins or whatever. And then we've got like this section, and we've got this section, okay? Let me see if you can see that. So this one's only broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4 section, and hers was broken up a little bit more because hers was a little bit bigger and it was slightly different than this. So she had another like section down, like up there, instead of there being like it going like this and then coming in, hers had another set of leaves or something on it. I don't remember, but you'll see if you look at the video below. But basically, all I have to worry about now is putting water in this little section up to this line. And I'm not going to hit that line. I'm going to stay away from that line. So that's the thing that was the key, because you don't want to end up doing the next section and have you get the color and have them start to blend together too much. Does that make sense? So I'm going to keep them separate and just wet in here in this section, fill it in with the paint I want, and then continue on with each section. So I'm gonna get some water, make sure this is clean first, and I'm going to put down water, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to hit that. I can hit the outside lines, but I'm not going to hit the, ooh, this paintbrush is terrible. I'm not going to hit the middle line, like the vein lines that I put in. I'm going to stay pretty well away from them. I get all my brushes like as cheap as possible, so I don't put a lot of money into things like that. Anyway, so I'm going to fill this with water by just dipping my brush in. And I want it to be wet. Not so sopping that it's dripping all over, but I do want it to be wet. I'm also forgetting that I need to spray my watercolors because they need a good spray so that they're wet. All right, so I'm getting the section that I want wet, hopefully. All right, and now I'm going to start dipping into some colors, and I'm going to start with like a yellow. Got a couple different yellows here. And I'm just going to tap in a bunch of different colors. I'm not even going to, like, it's not even going to be, you know, any kind of rhyme or reason about it. I'm not like trying to paint it perfect. I'm just going to use fall-like leaf colors and let that be the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to throw in some orange, and that's going to start, you know, getting the ball rolling here. And I can go in and kind of mush that around a little bit. And I'll put a little bit of this like brown color in. Whoops, this thing. If I can't way to get that to fold down, that would be great. Oops. And keep in mind, I've never done this particular thing before with the leaves, so this is like new to me. And I'm not very good at things, so you know what I mean? I've not done like a crazy amount of, well, that was a little pinker than I expected it to be. Expecting it to be more of a red color. Well, we could change that, hopefully. Taking some red. If not, then it'll just be what it is. It'll just be what it is. Okay, that looks pretty good. I might put a little bit of, you know, they're never completely perfect. They usually have a few like brown spots in them here and there. So I might do that and then pick up some of the there we go. I don't think that's too bad. I mean, it's not terrible. I'm going to turn it so that I can do this section and get it wet and try to stay away from, as I get that wet there, try to stay as much away from the other section that I just did as possible. It's kind of like painting with water, basically. And also not butting up completely to that middle line either. But I can go along the outside line. I mean, it's no big deal if you get a little bit of the color that runs together. It's fine, and eventually we'll probably fill in that area, but how she was doing it was to kind of keep them separated initially, to keep the color from running into each other. But I mean, you can keep it so that from section to section it kind of goes together a little bit. So like I have the yellow there, you know, I can start with the yellow again. I'm also going to add some of the yellow here too as well. Probably a little too much water in there. Grab some orange. And use this red here. And since I started with this weird magenta color, I might as well put a little bit up here so that it doesn't look too weird. And then I'll take some of that brown and alright, and so that's the second section done. See, not so bad so far. Now we're going to do the next section. Actually, I'm going to start with this one here because that's a little wet up there, and I'm going to try to avoid getting too close to it for a minute. We can move to this one, section by section. This is a good way to practice doing things like the wet on wet technique, which I like a lot. It seems pretty easy, not real complicated. You just want to look at it at an angle, like I'm twisting my head around, making sure that it's glossy wet in, you know, all the places that it needs to be. And not where it shouldn't be. I can move my water a little bit because I can't get to my paint. Alright, so we'll put some of the yellow in. I'm just putting it kind of randomly. I'm kind of keeping some of the colors cohesive so that when I, you know, when it's all done, it'll look, you know, sort of normal. Like it went together that way. Like organic, or whatever you want to call it. Might have a little too much water that dripped down there. My paper might be bubbling a little bit, which I should have probably taped it down or something. Tap, tap, tappity, tap, tap. A little bit of that magenta. Oh, that kind of just spread all over. It was like, I'm going where I want. Where did I grab that for? Well, whatever. We'll grab some of that too. I don't know, it's like a plum color. It's pretty. if you got a little too much like puddling going on, you could just tap your, like if you dry your brush off in a towel and then just tap it into wherever it's too much and then just keep drying it off. You could pick some of it up. This way it doesn't keep flowing all down there. All right, let's try to get a little brown spots. Just a couple. Doing a few on the corners right here. Okay, and then we can go to this one, which this one here, I just need to grab some of the water out of there. It's kind of pooled up a little bit, because like I said, I probably should have taped it down. All right, but let's go ahead and add the water in and fight against the tide of the paper wanting to it's buckled a little bit right here. You might want to tape yours down. It might be a bit easier, but if you tape it down, you might want to tape it down to something other than your desk, something you can turn. So like a clipboard or like a piece of cardboard, or, you know, something thick enough that it's not going to let it bend, but small enough where you can move it, you know, because I like to move it as I go. So, oh, see what happens when that little bit of leaked in, but that's okay. That's all right. We got a damn leak. There's a leak. There's a leak. It's not like those colors wouldn't have been next to each other anyway, so it really doesn't matter. It's because they want to run down yonder. Do this and kind of run that back down there a little bit. Because it's just having a good old time running away from me. Now we'll dab in some of that magenta. Put it over here. Only there's like a dab of that. Dang. That stuff goes pretty far. Okay. So I'm going to close in the gap a little bit on these. And same with up here. Let's go down, and they touch each other now. It's not that big of a deal. A little bit more of that magenta color. Alright. And then a little bit of brown. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I don't like that much of the brown, which that side I don't really love it where I have it. I can go back over it with a little bit of... What you don't want to do is keep puddling water on it. See, I'm going off camera because it's really hard for me to stay on camera. So you don't want to be like puddling and puddling and puddling. You want to make sure that if you're going to put a lot of water on, you're going to want to take some off too. So like dry your brush in a rag and dip it in and then dry it off and pick up anything you see that's real kind of puddly, because, you know, puddles can be bad. You don't want a lot of puddles going on. So if you can avoid that, then you'll be better off. So now that I've pretty much got all the colors I want the leaf to be, it's kind of cool looking, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in, well, I'm going to dry this first. I'm going to close up the gap here with a little bit of water and like a little bit of paint. And basically I'm just going to take like some of this red right here and put it here with a little water and just kind of go in where it's got that red color and just kind of close it up. I'd rather it be a little closed. And I'll go with the like orange color. And go in here. Even though you're going to probably see my pencil line anyway, so, but at least. I don't remember, I'm not sure she did this. I think she actually drew her lines in with the brush with the brown paint for like the veins, and I'm not really doing that because I'm going to do that, but I'm doing this first because I just want to, because I know myself I'll end up messing it up if I don't close them in a little bit. So this might not look as nice as hers, but I do the best I can. All right, so, whoops, dropping it there. Butterfingers. All right, now let's try to add in, use some brown. Let's try putting some over here. And then add a little bit of, what is this color? This is what I want. Add a little bit in there just to maybe give it a duller kind of brown color. That's a very red brown. That too, I think, is a very red brown. But that's okay. Alright, so I need to get this out of my way a little bit. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fill in. Actually, I'm going to dry this real quick with the heat gun and make sure it's dry. Because if you go ahead and put your brown in when it's wet, the brown is going to wick everywhere. So you want to try to do it, let's see. Yeah, I can hopefully get a, see, I don't have a very good, I have a steady hand, I don't have a light touch, that's the thing. I have a steady hand, just not a light touch. That's my deal. And so then I'm going to go up this leaf like a vein. I'm not going to quite go all the way to the top, and I probably shouldn't have gone all the way to the top with that one. And then I'm gonna do this one here. I'm probably not using the right brush either, but now you can go and I guess you could like outline the whole leaf if you wanted to, but I think I'm just gonna kind of do this a little bit and maybe a little bit up here too. And then do this part. And there. Not so bad. I need to work on the lining the part because I suck at that. It looks terrible. I probably should have left it alone. But we'll do another one with the next set, and hopefully it'll be, the lines will look better than that, because my lines suck, and even though I just watched her video like yesterday, I don't remember what she did. That's how terrible it is. I thought I remembered, but I don't remember what she did with her lines. So that's a good first start. Now, let's go to, you know what, we'll save the middle one, the middle grade, for last, and we'll go with we'll do these paints first, or second, whatever. First, second, third, who's on first, whatever. You know what I mean? I've used enough different types of paints to know at this point what good ones feel like. And besides that, most people that watercolor, if they're gonna be like professional watercolorists, or somebody who's good at it, or somebody who buys expensive paints, especially if they buy the kind that are in the tube, which is how they would fill this up, they're likely going to buy a nice palette like this, which this one's a decent palette. This one's a Lowell Cornell, which I don't know, I don't know, it might be a decent palette. Either way, I don't think it mattered because they were all pretty good. So I know they were definitely better than most paints I've used. That's for sure. That's for sure. All right. So I'm going to draw my lines again. And we're going to do the same thing all over again. And just start putting the water in. I got to move things because this was going to get rough now to try to be able to move this around as I go. That's where I'm starting in the wrong place. Okay. This is where I started. Come on now. Get it together. Now we went from the cheap paints. Now we're going to the little bit more expansive paints. And we will start with yellow again. That seems like a pretty good color because you can always make that darker or lighter as you go along. This one I'm going to add a little green into as well, because, you know, as if it's like still got some green in it, because that's what she did in her video and it looked real nice. As if there was still some green of the leaf poking through. Hadn't quite all turned.
Whoa, that yellow's pushing the green way back. Whoa, that's crazy. Don't do that. Come back, come back. Oh, I pushed it right out of the way, didn't it? No, we don't push each other. We be nice to each other. There you green. Yellow, you need to get along now. Try this yellow here. See if that can be a little bit darker. Add back in that green, which decided to go that way. It was running away from home up here. We don't want you all the way up there. I'll get you back in there a little bit, green. Don't be scared. The yellow ain't gonna hurt you. this red color. You have to tell it's a little darker. I had a rag instead of wiping my. There we go. Whenever I wipe off my brush a little bit, I'm having some issues with having a place to wipe it to because I seem to be wiping onto my. And I'm not wiping paint onto my pants or my shirt. I'm just drying it on my shirt. Like the green took over there a little bit. Let's throw a little bit of yellow back into the mix. Yeah, I can take a look at the brown. Ooh, maybe. Maybe some more. Some brown. It's kind of an orangey brown, but it'll work.
One of the other things you could do is add some salt. And you could use table salt. It does not have to be this. You can just use your regular old table salt. I just happen to have this because I had gotten some from the Creative Reuse. And it needs to be pretty wet in order for this to work really well, but we're going to try it on here. And this is basically, it's called for Starburst Effects and Silk Technique Painting. Oh, maybe this is the wrong type. I don't know. I have some that's for watercolor. I don't know if this will work. We'll try it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But table salt works fine too. If you get yourself a little container of table salt, you can just sprinkle it in and get some cool looking effects. All right, we're going to skip a section because that's still wet and I don't want to have to dry it because I want to let the salt do the drying. And we're going to go over to this section here. We're going to fill it with water.
Okay, so then we can grab some more paint. This would be just be random, do it however you want, you know? It's yours. You can even use, rainbow colors if you want to, you know what I mean? You're not forced to use fall colors, do it however you want. You want to make a rainbow leaf, make a rainbow leaf.
I wouldn't, don't use too many colors next to each other that are going to completely go and make yucky, poopy colors. You don't want poopy colors. Stay away from the poopy colors. So you should at least know the basics of the color wheel, which, I mean, if you remember how to mix paint from when you were a kid, it should be pretty easy for you.
About these pieces, is there red over here? Because all the reds, what is this orange? But that's not orange, is it? What is that? That's not orange. I mean, kind of. This is a Windsor red. Throw it in here too. That's a little bit better. That's a better red, I think, for what we're doing. But since it's right out of the tube, I need to give it a little help. Yellow. Kind of a mess of this one, didn't I? The orange kind of disappeared on me. More red. That's alright. That's alright. I'm just adding some more yellow in spots and hope for the best. It'll look pretty regardless. I mean, really, it's not like it's going to be, oh, it's so terrible. It's not going to be this tragic thing. I'm going to do a big old puddle down there. close to the line.
Alright, let's throw some salt on that side too. Lord knows there's enough paint to soak some of it up.
That's what it does, it absorbs some of the salt. It's kind of strategically placing it so that it has like these little spots.
So we'll do this side here.
We'll see how we can wreck that now. Wreck that side up, I'll make it all a mess. Why not? I love the fall leaves, and we have a maple tree that is up the road from me. Unfortunately, it's not on my property. I mean, there are, I don't know if it's a maple tree or not. I guess there's kind of like maple trees in our yard. But this, I don't know whether this is a special tree, the one that's up the street. But that one, every year, like the colors turn so amazing on it. They have like red and yellow and orange. It's so pretty, and I've not seen one do that like that. Not quite like this one does. It's pretty badass. And I want to have my picture taken under it. And I say that like every year, and then I forget.
Keep the red away from the green. Red and green, although pretty together at Christmas, they do not look good mixed together. They turn into mud for sure. So you don't want to have them two hanging out. It's kind of like the bad guy that you don't want hanging out with your daughter. They become volatile when mixed. You wouldn't want him to muddy up your daughter, so you don't want them to muddy up each other on the painting either. Orange and green make mud too, but I'm not mad at a little bit like of a brown color coming in, obviously, because I'm gonna put a little brown in anyway sometime. Forgot to do it in other places, but I'm gonna do it on in this section. Maybe I'll put a little there too, but that's gonna get absorbed by that salt. Alright, I'm going to throw some salt on that. Okay, let's see what that'll do. Now we got one more section. This little dude right here, which, let me see if I can do this without making a mess of it. But it's kind of relaxing to, just sit and do this. It's kind of like coloring, except more unpredictable. To me, it's more fun than coloring.
There's some red on the side of my watercolor, orange, and I got my brush in there, that's alright. I'm going to put my color in there anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's more fun than coloring, because coloring is kind of boring. This at least you get to see some explosions of color as you put the paint into the wet paint, into the water, I mean. It explodes! It starts traveling. This yellow really likes to frickin' travel.
I'm actually, now that I've got the two pans I'm using together, I think this pan had the more expensive paints than even this one. Initially, I wasn't sure which one had the better paints, but I'm thinking that the smaller pan has the better paints in it for sure.
I'll probably likely cut these out to use them if I do decide to use them for like cards or something, which I'm thinking about doing. I might cut them out just because of that pencil line. Like, I still made it too dark. And I've gone over my lines a little bit here and there. Okay, good at following the lines.
Put some of the brown around the salt on these so that even though it'll absorb some of it, might leave a little ring of brown. You know how like sometimes a leaf has like little spots of brown that are like just like little rings, like as if something was chomping at it or something? I'm wondering if I do this along the salt here and let it drip down the side of the salt. So it won't be real intense on the thing, but it'll leave like a small little brown spot.
Like a leaf, like, what do you call it? Not even a spot, just a ring. I'm just testing to see if that theory will prove me correct or not. Probably not, because I don't know nothing about nothing. But it could be fun to find out.
Alright, let's salt this section up. We're going to let this one dry before well, you know what? Maybe I will connect the areas a little bit while the salt's there. What the heck? We'll do it while the salt is on it. This might even help me out if I do that. I'm just going to connect the areas a little bit.
Yeah, I think it will help me because it'll absorb some of the mess that I end up making. Whoops, I just put a bunch of water in there. That's smart. I don't want to do that. Just put some water in.
Okay, let's set that aside. Now we're going to use the mid-range paints. Let's see how our other one's doing over here. I think that looks really cool, minus the stupid brown lines that look really dumb. But I'm going to do the other one. Nah, you know what? I'll get a different piece of paper completely. Okay, so we've got our Arteza palette here, which you can't see because it's off camera. Were you able to see the other colors I had? Probably not, because they probably all were off camera a little bit. Let's take some of the yellow and go, ooh, ooh, that's nice. That just went boom. Take some of this little color here.
Let it on much paint. Need water. Too much water. I'm kind of butted up to my line a little too much there too. I'm gonna add a little green to this one too. I always go for the reds that are like more on the magenta side than I do red. I guess I'm drawn to those colors. That's okay. Let's throw a little brown into the mix. Just put some brown on them.
Throw some salt on it and just let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Put some salt on your watercolor and let it be.
Now you're gonna get a Beatles rendition of Let It Be. No, not my rendition of a Beatles song. That little area right there. Just want to have a little more contrast there. Not completely dry. There we go. Maybe a little trick of doing the dropping some of that brown color on top of the salt again.
So you see it pool around the bottom of the salt. I feel like it'll leave a little tiny brown ring, like a, you know, how the leaves get that brown spots. I think I said that before. Duh. Now we'll skip to the next one.
Why not? We're gonna skip to my darling. We're gonna skip to my darling. How was that number? We're gonna do that. We're gonna skip to my wherever that is. We're gonna skip it. Right. I keep forgetting not to go up to the middle line completely. I'm doing it anyway, but as long as I'm skipping every other one, it seems to be fine. I'm doing it that way and then backtracking. It seems to be dry enough. What I am having a problem with is keeping it level because I've got my palette down here. I'm trying to keep everything on camera for you. I'm not doing such a hot job at the time. At the moment. Choo choo choo. What about like a dark orange? I can mix a couple of colors together to get a reddish brown. That's coming out more red. That's not orange. What did I pick up? I think I picked up red. Thought I was picking up orange. Ding. A little brown in there. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Orange. Oh, nice dark orange. Let's give it a brown orange. Some red, or magenta, or whatever color you want it to be. Just throw some red in there. This one's more the red one. Sure. I'm gonna get some flow going here because there's too much water in a few spots. I need to clean it up a little bit because we're getting ahead of ourselves. I'm losing all my yellow because of the water. Got water shortage on this end and too much water on this end because it's not very even the way I'm working. And then I lost my green. I'm gonna put some more green back in there. And I think we could put some, what do you call it? Some salt.
Alright, and then I'm going to take some more of that brown again. And just tap it around the salt. I think I mentioned this. I didn't see anybody do this. I'm just kind of making this up, so don't come for me if you're like, that didn't do anything. I tried that and it didn't do anything. Because, yeah, probably won't do anything. Putting the brown around the salt. It probably won't do a damn thing. But, you know, it was fun to try. Next section.
Let's do this one here, since why not? That's a good reason, since why not? There we go.
So it's going to wick into this one a bit. I should have dried. Well, I don't want to dry them because I don't want this. The salt needs to dry everything. You know what I mean? Like you can't dry them because you want the salt to do the drying on those. So, get over there. No, too much. Abort, abort. If I had patience, I would let those two dry, then come back and do. But I ain't got none of those patient things. I ain't got none of that patient stuff.
Let it orange first and then let it flow a little bit. Whoa! Run free! There's no strategy behind it either, which probably is pretty evident. But I don't have a strategy, so I just kind of do it until it's good enough, I guess is the strategy. Whoops, don't go outside my line there, dude. My dude, stay in the line, dude. You might have to go back over sections here and there. That's okay. If you do, you do. You can take some paint away and then come back, you know, come back in with some more paint. Just by using a paintbrush that you dried off on a rag or something. And just tapping it onto the area that's too wet. And then you'll get, it'll dry it up a little bit. You can add a little water first to like, if the paint's a little dry, but you don't want that color there, you want to lighten that color, you can add a little bit of paint and then, so add a little water and then go back in. Pick up the freaking salt, dummy. Anyway, add a little water and then go back in with a dry brush so that you're picking up the water with the paint underneath of it that you don't want. But in other words, if I didn't want like this green right here, I could put some water on there and lighten it up a lot. It may not get rid of it, but it'll lighten it up to make it, you know, so that I can put another color over top of it and likely you know, fix something that I didn't like or... Even go back to the ones that are kind of dry and drop paint right next to the salt. And I think it's working actually, shockingly. That is, I'm not picking up the stupid salt accidentally with the paintbrush. I'm noticing little things. Noticing things that I think is telling me that it's working, it's working. Okay, one more section to go.
One more section to go. Isn't this the most boring thing you've ever watched? Oh my goodness.
That's alright. So far. The paints, as far as the paints go, oh well, back over there. Of course I like those expensive paints, but honestly I think these are going to give me better results. I just have a feeling. I don't know why. They shouldn't. It should be the other paints, honestly, but I feel like these ones are going to give me the best results. Because so far the way everything was going together, it just seemed like it was, I don't know, working out that way.
It's like the way the colors have been melding together on this one particularly.
Going over this one. I'm going over this one. What am I doing over there? I'm going kind of outside my lines, but that's okay because, like I said, I'm quickly going to just cut this up anyway, so. Just don't cut it all up. Some colors in there. Whatever happens, happens. I don't want the red in there with the green did. No, 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 no. You're not allowed to go in the forbidden zone. That's the only color that isn't the best color to be mixing with red and such is the green. It mixes with the yellow, okay, but not so much with the red or the orange. I can kind of pull some of it in there, and as long as I don't mix it around too much, it's okay. But it's not the number one choice of the night. Alright, that looks good to me. These are cool.
Being willy-nilly with the salt.
Okay, there we go. This one got brown. Pick it up, dude. I'm not so bad at this. Just flip it, drop it. Alright, it's fine. Now, honestly, if I touch it and hold it on the salt, and if the paintbrush is wet enough with it, it won't pick it up quite as much, but it'll drop the heat around it a little more. I wonder if it gets off of there. Salt? Curious as how this will look. It's going to absorb the salt, but it's going to leave a ring.
You see what I mean? See how the brown is around the salt? That's what I'm going for, so that I can maybe have a cool kind of these are big chunks of salt, so I mean if you're using table salt it might not work as well. Just decided to paint that. Okay, just move a piece of salt over it. But with these big pieces of salt it works best because it's a lot of salt. It can absorb a lot of moisture. It's got the ability to do that, whereas a smaller piece of salt, it's going to be harder for it to, first of all, not put your paintbrush down and have it filled with salt. So it probably won't work for that. Alright, well, there's that one. Put lots of salt on that one. Let's check back in with this one. It is still drying. Oh, I don't want to contaminate the two different paints. So this is like the expensive paint right here. So I'm going to write that on here so my ass don't forget. I'm going to put expensive. That the one on my thing is the mid-range Arteza paint. And then this is the cheap paint. I know I didn't put the salt on, but it still looks pretty dang good. Minus my stupid lines. But I love the way the colors flowed. That looks great. So if you've got cheap paint, it works, you know? It'll be just fine. The other two we're going to compare after they dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this off for a sec. Shut the camera off. Let these completely dry. Because that's the thing with the salt. You can't use a heat gun. You got to let the salt do all the absorption. Because if you use a heat gun, first of all, you're going to blow your salt around. Second of all, it's going to stop the process of the salt working. So I'm going to shut the camera off and I'll come back in about an hour and we'll check on our salty leaves. So I'll be right back. Okay. We're back. And we have our little salty friends, which we are going to reveal. The little thingamabobbies. I'll start with this one, because this is the one I did first with salt. These are the expensive paints. I'm going to do it over my garbage can real quick. Just going to kind of crumble them off or scrape them with a palette knife or something. Good Lord, they're stuck on there. There we go. I got them. Okay. Cool, it did leave little brown spots. My theory worked. Very cool. Let's do this one, shall we? Oh, these didn't stick nearly as bad. That's good. Ooh, and the spots are... I used a little bit of a darker brown on this one, but I love it. It's kind of cool. Kind of cool. So, to compare the three, I mean, aside from obviously I didn't put salt on this one, because I didn't think of it until after, but to compare the three, there's not a whole lot of difference. The biggest difference is that these two have a little bit more deeper pigment to them than this one. It's easier to tell off camera. I'm looking up at my monitor, but this definitely is a little bit less pigmented than these. These are much brighter. I'm not going to paint the stems on all of them just because I think I'm going to wait and re-look at her video, which I'll link in the description, on how she did it so that I don't mess these two up too. But, I mean, it just shows you that even if you have $5 paints, you know, $30 paints, or, you know, whatever these cost, I don't really know, but I know that they're pricey. You know, you could still get nice results. Now, as far as... I'm actually surprised because the expensive paints and the Arteza paints don't look very different from each other at all. There's very, very little difference. I actually thought that there was going to be more difference because obviously these are more expensive, but you could see that they're both very vibrant. You know, the only reason that this red is more vibrant here is because on this one it was leaning this way a little bit, and that's where I had to sop up some water. If I would have left it alone like I did this one, because I kind of left that one and that's why it was so dark. Just like right here, you see how that red's dark? That's just because of the way I had it sitting. Well, actually it's mostly here because it was sitting and it's puckered here, so it was kind of running that way, so it concentrated. But really, there's really no difference in these two, especially. This one's just slightly less pigmented, but still pretty, still great. It still came out really cute. Love it. You know, I think the Artezas are the best value for the money. I like mid-range paints because I feel like unless you are a professional watercolorist, you don't need expensive watercolors. As much as they're fun to play with and be like, ooh, I got fancy watercolors, I would never buy them. You know what I mean? Like, for crafters like myself, we're gonna, you know, the best thing to do is to buy the mid-range paints. Because you're gonna get your best value out of them. You're not gonna feel bad about using them. You know what I mean? You're not gonna feel like, oh, I don't want to use them up, you know, they're fancy. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna feel that way over a 36 pan of paints that cost $30. You know what I mean? You're not gonna feel that way. Whereas these, I feel like I need to gingerly use them and baby them because they're so much more expensive. So, I mean, honestly, I think these are your best bet. Is something like the Artezas. I think the Artezas are a great value because you get 36 colors. It comes with a water brush. You know, it's a great travel pan. And you could put extra, when they have more colors, you can add to it. So, and it's a nice size. It's not too small, not too big. So, it's great. There is a link in the description where you can get the Arteza watercolors. So, definitely check those out if you're interested in having some nice watercolors that, you know, aren't cheap, but aren't super expensive, but still do the same as more expensive paints, you know? I like these paints a lot. I think they're great. You know, you guys know I love my Kuratakis, but I think these are very similar to the Kuratakis, and I like the color range that you get in these as well. So these are a great set to have. So yeah, the only thing I like a little bit more about the Kuratakis is they have metallics, which I don't think any of these are metallics. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But then again, I don't use the metallics all that much. I use more of the color anyway. So you can get this, and then I don't know if they have a metallic watercolor set that you can get for this, but if not, you can buy the the Kurataki, just the metallic palette. It's a small palette. So you could do that, and then you can have, you know, your metallics, and you can have this, or, you know, whatever. But anyway, stay tuned for part 2, hopefully in a couple days, because I'm gonna make cards out of all of these, because I think they would make really pretty cards. So yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you really liked it. Yeah, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not subscribed. And we will be doing some cards in the next video. Don't forget, on Wednesdays we do Mixed Media Mashup. It's a class. It's a Mixed Media beginners class. So if you've never done mixed media before and you've always kind of wanted to try it, this class is perfect. Every Wednesday we do it, and you know, you don't need any experience at all. Just come in with some, you know, either a piece of watercolor paper, a piece of, you know, cardboard that you got on the back of a cereal box or something, anything, it doesn't matter. All you need is some paints, maybe a stencil or two, and you can start right away. I mean, it's just basically a fun kind of very, very loose and casual kind of class that we do just for fun, just to make a mess. You don't have to think. You're not going to have to think about anything, because I pick cards and each card has different prompts and we follow what it says on the prompts. So it might say add paint, it might say collage some paper, it might say use a stencil, it might say use the color red, stuff like that. So it's just a way to get you kick-started into some mixed media. And it's a lot of fun, and I have a giveaway at the end of it. So yeah, join us for that on Wednesday evenings. Usually we do it around 8:30-ish, sometimes 8 o'clock. So just, I have a Facebook group. You can check the link for that in the description as well. If you're subscribed and you have the notifications turned on for my channel, which is that little bell icon, you can get notified of when I go live. So yeah, so check it out. So let me know in the comments which one you like the best. Do you like the cheapest paints? Do you like the mid-range ones? Do you like the most expensive ones? Which one do you prefer? And I will talk to you guys later. Make sure you do what you love and love what you do and be nice to people. Bye.